Hello, my name is Saurus. My guest today is Preston Stovall. Preston is a philosophy professor at the University of Hradec Kralove in the Czech Republic. Welcome, Preston.
Hi, Saurus. Thank you for having me.
Preston, what I'd like to know today is, what is philosophy?
Well, there are a number of different ways of thinking about what philosophy is. I think of it in terms of a conversation about the beautiful, the true, and the good. And so I think of that as a pretty consistent theme in 2,500 years of philosophy.
And where did these ideas come from?
Well, the word philosophy comes from ancient Greece. As far as we know, the first person to really use it was Socrates. And among Socrates and the folks around him, these questions of the beautiful, the true, and the good kept coming up. And so one way of thinking about philosophy is that it's an attempt by successive people who considered themselves philosophers to engage with the kind of thoughts that earlier philosophers had.
And what about other cultures that maybe didn't have interaction with the ancient Greeks?
Well, the nice thing about thinking of philosophy as a topic, like the beautiful, the true, and the good, is that in principle allows it to be the sort of thing that individuals from different traditions might take part in, even if they didn't originally interact with people who come out of the ancient Greek tradition. So I think of the beautiful, the true, and the good as ideas that are the topic of reflective conversation and discussion that really represent topics or thoughts about what we are as the sensing and thinking and acting things we are. And if we think of philosophy as this topical thing, as opposed to something that just has a certain socio-historical tradition, then there can be African philosophy, there could be Native American philosophy, there could be Asian philosophy that doesn't necessarily have that direct intellectual lineage to the ancient Greeks.
That's really interesting. So let's break these down one by one. So you said the beautiful. Let's start with that one. What's that about?
Well, if you think of beauty as the sort of thing that's studied in a discipline like aesthetics, the ancient Greek word aesthetics, it shares its root, or our word for aesthetics shares its root with an ancient Greek word that means something like perception or representation. So you can think of the beautiful as a topic that concerns the way we take information in and how we should think about what's presented to us in perception or in intuition. And so obviously topics like art, but then also topics like cognitive science and the way information is processed through our perceptual faculties.
Okay. And then what about the true?
Well, if we think of truth as the kind of thing that concerns judgments, then one way of thinking about a topic like the true is that it gives us a kind of reflective stance on the information that we're processing. So again, in a simple way, if you think that information is taken in through our sensory faculties, through perception, then we are concerned with the true as a way of sorting what we perceive in terms of whether or not we think it's actually reflecting the way things are.
And finally, what about the good?
Well, again, thinking in terms of this kind of process, taking information in, reflecting it, and then doing something with it. So the good concerns maybe our volitions or what we ought to do or how we ought to behave. So topics like what's good or what's right concern not just how we take information in, but what we do in the world, the kind of actions we make and the volitions or will that we exercise when we're doing certain things.
So humans think about these topics in very different ways from dinosaurs. If a dinosaur had an idea of the beautiful, the good, and the true that differed from a human perspective, what would that mean?
Well, one of the great things about thinking of philosophy as a topic of conversation is that if we could talk to a dinosaur about what a dinosaur thought was good and true and beautiful, then maybe we could come to some kind of an agreement, or at least we'd understand each other's perspectives a little bit better. Now that's aspirational. Maybe it's just not the sort of thing that we could ever actually expect to happen in practice, but I think it's worth at least hoping for the possibility of some kind of mutual understanding, even between human beings and dinosaurs.
Wow, interesting. All this talk of philosophy has made me very hungry.
I don't like the look in your eyes there, moral source.
Yeah, well, to be honest, you're looking quite beautiful, and I think the truth is that you look pretty good and tasty.
Really don't like the look in your eyes, moral source.
Ah!